Mr. George Elmore was a wealthy black Richland County businessman who sued for and won the right for blacks to vote in the state Democratic Party primary. Mr. Elmore's victory came at a steep price as the Ku Klux Klan hounded him and reprisals destroyed his business and rendered his family penniless and homeless. But Mr. Elmore's work served as a political blueprint for the people of Greenview, a community nestled in the corridor between Farrell Road and North Main Street in Columbia, South Carolina.
In the early 1950s, we didn't have many things we could boast about here in Greenview. We had no paved sidewalks, no city sewage, very few streetlights, and even less police protections. Neighbors decided to form a community action group, the North Columbia Civic Club. The name was misleading because the aim of the group had nothing to do with parties and social events. Our leaders were Reverend C.J. Whitaker, Reverend M.C. Fennell, and Mr. Norman Pendergrass. This group was ready to flex its political muscles and become an instrument for positive change for the citizens of Greenview.
Paul Wade, Treasurer, the North Columbia Civic Club.
In the club itself, which was organized through Reverend Whitaker, C.J. Whitaker, he was a strong leader, ready to make sure that things got along as they should.
There was a man by the name of Reverend C.J. Whitaker, and he was our religious leader and our political leader. And it was Reverend Whitaker that got things going in our community. He and the principal of Fairwall Middle School, Mr. Pendergrass, was the principal. And Mr. Pendergrass and Reverend Whitaker formed what is known as the North Columbia Civic Club. And it was and Reverend Whitaker was the president. And it was through this club, North Columbia Civic Club, that we got everything out here in this area that we have through that organization. Before that time, we had nothing out here. And Reverend Whitaker and Mr. Pendergrass led us and showed us where we need drainage. And we didn't get all the drainage we needed, but at least they got us out of the water out here. And we needed sewage, and later on, through the political process, we got sewage out here. And I've always attributed my success and to who I am to Reverend C.J. Whitaker.
My earliest remembrance of Dad is when I was about 7 or 8 years old. He was working with the community. He had a love for the community. But I remember his working at then what was called State Park, but now called Crafts Farrell Mental Health Facility. They were trying to get equal pay for the African American employees. And he was active in getting that into a reality. I really began to realize the importance of what Daddy was doing during the civil rights movement in the 60s. He began to emphasize to the community of registering to vote. He had the family help as well. I remember my part was to do the administrative work. He would take me along with him to different churches to sign people up to vote, and I'd help them fill out the forms and have them to sign the forms. I remember when I was in about 9th grade, Daddy had me downtown somewhere. I'm not sure where it was, but it was a facility that he had rented out for the purpose of doing the administration work, typing letters and calling people, following up on details. And I just remember it was like a warehouse with nothing but a little rickety table with an old-time typewriter and I was sitting there. He'd leave and go take care of business and come back and check on me, bring me lunch, and make sure that everything was okay. He was a very demanding man, but he was very productive in what he set his mind out to do. He would also, when he became president of the North Columbia Civic Club, he would have us to, as the girls, have us to call the members to remind them. And I can remember very vividly calling, "Hello, I'm calling for Reverend C.J. Whitaker. I'm calling to remind you of the meeting, the North Columbia Civic Club meeting on Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Hope you'll be able to attend. Thank you." I'll never forget that because we made so many calls to remind people of the meeting, and he was very adamant about it. Daddy was not around many times, but Daddy's presence was around all the time. He was very, like I said, demanding, but he kept the household going. He always made sure that we did what he had set out for us to do. If we were supposed to clean the house, he'd make sure he'd call and check up, "Have you done such and such? Have you taken out such and such?" And when he came through the door, such and such should be done, and it should be in proper order. We came to love, as we got older, the things Daddy taught us, but most importantly, the importance of our vote, the right to vote. We saw so many people coming and the sacrifices so many people were making. And especially when Dr. Martin Luther King was killed for his activism, that was a blow. And I think that motivated Daddy to work harder. Daddy understood that we were all paying taxes, but because the Black community was not receiving the benefit of those taxes as other communities, it made him drive harder to help the community and go forward with, we pay taxes, we need to vote and get the people that will help us to improve our communities, to improve our areas that we live in, for us to take charge of our lives and our livelihood.
Now, people ask me, so, well, how did he select you? Well, first of all, I have news for him. At first, he would always select King, Benjamin, Lindbergh, Jeffcoat. Everything that came up, he'd look, Jeff, and then Jeff had the first shot. He could say yay or nay. If Jeff said yay, Jeff got it. And eventually, Mr. Jeffcoat moved out of Greenview all the way up near town there on Grand Street. So then when Jeff wasn't here, for some reason or another, he'd look at me and, and offer me things. "Kid, you want this?" I said, "Yes, sir." And that's really how I got into politics. And people ask me, so, well, how did you get into politics? How did you get to run for the House and the Senate? And I'd always tell them, I got to run because Mr. Jeffcoat moved out of the community who had first choice. So after Jeff moved, I was the second string, so I moved up to first string, and that's really how I got into politics. I never thought about running for it. It just never crossed my mind. I was just in the community helping people. And after being elected, then I could really help people in, thanks to Reverend Whitaker. I was elected in 74 and started serving January 75 in the House. And first I was on the Education Committee, and I did a lot of help in that area, being an educator myself. But the main committee in the House and the Senate, in the House you call it the Ways and Means Committee. In the Senate you call it the Finance Committee. So I was on education first, and then Gene Toll, who is now Chief Justice, Gene and I served together, and Gene went to Raymond Schwartz, the Speaker, and told him that he needed to put me on Ways and Means. And that's how I got on Ways and Means, through Gene Toll. Then I served on the Ways and Means until, I guess it was around 85. From 75 to 85 is when I was in the House. And during all those 11 years, I tried to speak to the needs, the dreams, and the aspirations of my people, and tried to get the services for them, sidewalks, sewage, cleaning up the neighborhood and that type of thing. Also, when I first got there, I didn't know that the Confederate flag was on top of the State House, because I never did drive down through there, and I didn't pay any attention to that. So therefore I didn't know. But when I got down there, the flag was on top of the State House. The Confederate flag was in the House chambers. The Confederate flag was in the Senate chambers. And the Confederate flag was down on the first floor lobby of the State House. And I just thought it was wrong. I don't hate the flag or anything like that, because I know that there are a whole lot of people that loves the flag, but I just happen not to be one of them that loves it. And so I started preaching against that flag and putting in bills every year to bring the flag down. And I know what I said alienated many people in the chambers of the House, but I wanted them to bring the flag down and put it in a place of honor like the Confederate Relic Room, because it is a Confederate relic. And but my boys wouldn't do that. They refused. And I thought my role, and I know the role of any representative or Senate, is to serve the people that elected him, speak to their needs, dreams, and aspirations, deliver a service, because you were not elected to get your Senate tag number 11 or number 1 and then drive fast down the road. That ain't what it's about. It's about serving the people.
We found out that some of the schools were in a deplorable condition. In fact, they were over 50 years old in some of the areas, or some older than that, but on an average. All the schools in Richland 1 were somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 to 50 some odd years old. So we found that there was a need for the schools to be improved. This, I was looking at it in the sense of in the school as the teacher and an administrator, as well as a private citizen. We were then able to get a bond referendum going so that they would improve the school. We got out the referendum. It was brought in so that we could get improvement throughout the schools there. It wasn't an easy task. You had to convince some people that what it would do for the school district, what it would do for the city of Columbia, as well as for the overall education of the students. After we had gotten through that particular phase of it, we finally completed several of the schools, and then we were into the point of open them up. So we had the ribbon cutting at the various schools there. They were completed, and from there on, the students just seemed to enjoy the schools, but very much as within a greater sense of what they had done in the past.
On November 4th, 2014, we have made another milestone in history in the state of South Carolina with the lowest voting turnout in 40 years. Daddy would have been very upset. He would have been very disappointed. He would have immediately after the election started strategizing and evaluating to find out what went wrong and how to do better next time.
I'm Zentoria Goodwin, and I can't vote because I'm only 9 years old. Why don't you vote? Because you're only 50?
We have just completed an election, November the 4th, 2014. And I was working all along to get out the vote activity. I thought we were going along in a presentable way of seeing that people would get to the polls. We provided transportation, we provided early voting, which was the absentee ballot as it's called in South Carolina, and everything was set to go. However, at the close of the voting period, we found out that we had what we would consider the lowest turnout in the election cycle. I do not know what caused it, but whatever it was a very poor showing. I'm very disappointed in what took place. However, I'll still be working along the line to try to get, for the next election, to get as many people to the polls as possible. Whatever it's going to take, we'll be evaluating that on the coming period of time. And at that time, we'll make a decision as to what can be done, what needs to be done, as to what would cause people to give up the most precious thing that they have, most expensive thing that they have received, in the sense that they could have gone out to vote. Forget about all the excuses, forget about what might be the outcome, forget about what this thing called my vote won't count. Every vote counts.
So, you won't go and vote and honor those people who fought, bled, and died to give you the right to vote? Okay, go and vote because it will benefit you. For this once, I'm giving you permission to be selfish. Go and vote.
The last election, Obama, the president, wasn't on the ticket. It's all local stuff. Our two senators, Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott, starting up at the top, and you come on down, Jim Clyburn, my homeboy out of Sumter, and my friend, lives around the corner from me, was on the ticket. And but people locally, and nationally too, if the president not on the ticket running, they feel like they don't have to go and vote, and that's a huge mistake. The vote is the thing that gets you whatever you need in your community through the vote, through the ballot.
Some people say they don't vote because they don't mix religion and politics. It's a sorry excuse. Jesus was arrested because of politics. Pilate, the governor, had a custom of releasing one prisoner each year, and he asked the crowd if he should release Jesus or Barabbas, a well-known criminal. The group shouted, "Give us Barabbas!" Pilate replied, "But Jesus has done no wrong." A riot broke out as the crowd yelled, "Give us Barabbas!" Pilate bowed to political pressure and Jesus was crucified. Now, my good Christian friends, what's your reason for not voting?
Speaking of this younger generation that's coming up, and I don't mean just a generation behind me, but I'm talking about the children coming up. If we can instill into them, and it's hard to do, to stay in school and get an education and stop seeking instant gratification. If you want something, I want it right now. You know, ain't nothing coming to you right now. You know, and how you spell rat? R-A-T. It's not coming right now. You got to get your education and prepare yourself, pull your britches up from below your behind, stay in school, keep your hand in his hand, and learn that when man closes one door in your face, he'll open up 1,000 more. If you follow that route, you can achieve and be somebody. When I was a little boy, my grandmama told me, said, "Boy, I want you to be somebody. And you don't have to come out of the big fine house on the hill in order to be somebody." You know, I'm a living example of that because I came out of Sumter from across the tracks back in Old Mill Alley. And I made it. And if I made it through those conditions, our children coming up under us, they can make it if we inspire them and encourage them.